Welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm your host, Logan Bourandas, joined by Hunter Pitcoff and Jeremy Ganes. Tonight, we're looking back on last week's NFL Combine and some of the biggest stories following the event. So probably the biggest story coming out in the NFL over the past couple days is what will Washington do with their number 2 pick? According to rumors, they are apparently looking at drafting a quarterback like Tua Tagovailoa or maybe even Justin Herbert over the Ohio State edge rusher Chase Young. So should Washington pass over Chase Young to draft a second straight quarterback for the second straight year?
Man, that'd be crazy, obviously. We did see the Cardinals do it, though, and it did work out with them with Kyler Murray. He's definitely the guy, not Josh Rosen. It's also worth noting that this is Ron Rivera's team. He was not there last season. He's the new head coach. Apparently, Dan Snyder has given him the keys of the car. He's going to be calling the shots. It's going to be really hard to pass on a guy like Chase Young. Dwayne Haskins last year didn't really go through his reads very well. He could be dyslexic. There's the rumors there. But anyways, though, Tua Tagovailoa, I like him more as a prospect than I like Dwayne Haskins. But I thought Dwayne did show some promise. So I guess the question is, do you trust Dwayne Haskins? And like you said, Logan, really, really hard to pass on Chase Young there.
Yeah, this is an interesting decision for me. But we have these kinds of discussions about these high draft picks all the time. There's the obvious pick and then the alternative. For me, keep it simple if you're Washington. Just take the elite edge rusher that you know you're going to get in Chase Young. Tua's, to me, is just as much of a question mark as Haskins is in terms of his development. You don't know for sure if he's going to be healthy. The medicals did check out pretty well, but I think you got to give Haskins a little bit more time. I didn't think he was very ready when he first came in and had those first few starts. Looked much better at the end of the year. I thought he improved. I think more time in the NFL at the pros to make the adjustment. He's definitely a young player. He'll definitely improve with time.
Yeah, I think the big difference between the Josh Rosen, Kyler Murray scenario to this year's scenario is that Josh Rosen played almost the entire season. He only missed, I think, like 2 games that entire year. So the Cardinals, they knew that Josh Rosen wasn't the guy and they could draft Kyler Murray and get rid of Rosen. Haskins played less than half of this year's season. So there isn't really that much to go on so far to judge Dwayne Haskins. He only played 7 games in the season. He only made 7 starts. So you really can't really judge Dwayne Haskins yet so far this season. And do you really want Chase Young to fall into the hands of a team like Detroit, a team like maybe the New York Giants, if Detroit managed to take a quarterback?
Washington's not much better, though, but yeah.
Washington's not that much better, but that's the point. They need other positions than just taking a quarterback in back-to-back years. So Chase Young, kind of hard to pass up for me. Mm-hmm. All right, the next question here, we're taking a look at the quarterback field post-NFL Combine. You had some guys rise up the draft boards and some guys kind of fall down. What does that quarterback draft class look like after this week's NFL Combine?
In terms of guys who really, really participated, Joe Burrow, and Tua Tagovailoa, they did their own thing, but they really weren't doing the drills. Justin Herbert was fantastic. He's been the clear-cut best quarterback on-field performer during this offseason draft process. He dominated the Senior Bowl. He threw awesome at the Combine. Also, I did better than people even thought at the athletic drills, and he's already a really athletic quarterback. So Justin Herbert, I think he's locked himself as a top 10 pick for sure. Jalen Hurts, I know that's your guy. He really impressed me. His footwork looks so much better than it did even a few months ago at Oklahoma. I know he doesn't have the strongest arm, but if he's able to be almost near perfect at everything else, I can definitely see Hurts succeeding in the NFL in the right system. And a guy like Jacob Eason was getting so much hype entering the Combine, and I wasn't too impressed with the way he threw the ball. And it's also worth knowing that he bombed the interviews, and the interviews are extremely important, probably the most underrated aspect of the Combine. That's not going to help a guy who already had character concerns in Jacob Eason.
Yeah, it wasn't a great weekend for Eason. Justin Herbert, I think, really killed the drills and showed his physical skills. But to me, ultimately, there's game tape in those big games, not going to reflect well. And like you said, probably locked himself into a top 10 pick. I personally have the concerns long-term over his prospects. Jalen Hurts also is a guy that people really had their question marks about in terms of, is he really going to be a quarterback at the next level? But he did really well in the drills and impressed scouts. So I think he definitely helped his case to maybe be a mid-round pick and have a team take a flyer on him, maybe be that project that they work on.
Yeah, I think what we're looking at here in terms of just this overall quarterback class is that there's a top 3 and then there's everyone else. You got your Joe Burrow, you got Tua, you got Justin Herbert. They're definitely going to be top 10, maybe even top 5, all 3, if some trades end up happening towards the draft. But a guy that I talked about last week, Jalen Hurts, I said last week he had to prove that he can throw the ball really well at the Combine. He did just that. He showed his arm accuracy, he showed his throw power, he showed his athleticism, which is his strong point. at Oklahoma and in Alabama. So he definitely moved up at least a whole round, in my opinion, in the NFL draft. Maybe even to the 3rd round. Could even be 2nd round pick if he gets lucky.
All it takes is one team, right?
All it takes is one team. All right, so now looking back at the overall combine, not just quarterbacks, who was your MVP at this year's combine?
I said Isaiah Simmons entering the week was going to be the guy we all talked about, and he's still the guy. He is a linebacker who can run literally a sub-4 440, plays all over the field. He did great in every single aspect of it, so got to give credit to Isaiah Simmons where it's due. But also looking at some other guys, I think the guys who play on the perimeter did a great job. Jeff Okudah and C.J. Henderson, I think they solidified themselves as the top 2 corners in this draft. And looking at guys like C.D. Lamb and Jerry Jeudy, super stacked receiver class, but I thought those 2 guys really stood out compared to the rest of the pack.
My MVP is Jonathan Taylor. He's a guy that, we probably have not been talking that much about in this draft process. During the season, obviously a stud player, has some of the best game tape a running back in college has probably ever had, has the stats to prove it. He ran a really good 40-yard dash, which was really important to kind of showing scouts that he's as good as he looks on tape. A 4.39 40-yard dash to show that he has that elite speed to go along with the solid technical skills at running back and just being sound all around. Also did really well in the receiving drills. Doing the gauntlet, he looked really strong and looked like he'd be a solid pass catcher. He had an improvement this year receiving compared to previous years. So, if he can show scouts and convince them that he has that extra layer to his game, he can prove his value even more as a running back at the next level.
You talked about elite 40 times. How about Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa, the offensive lineman? Ran, I think it was under 5 for an offensive lineman, which isn't really expected at that position. And he boosted his stock a ton going to this draft, especially in a draft class that a lot of teams in the top, they need offensive linemen. They need them desperately. They need an athletic offensive lineman. And Tristan Wirfs, he proved to be the top. He proved to be the first of the bunch here for these offensive linemen. He had everyone talking here in this combine. A lot of people were talking about how athletic this guy was. They didn't know how athletic he was going to be. And this is what the combine does. It takes guys out of these drills, and they manage to boost their draft stocks really well.
Yeah, he's got hops too. 36-inch vertical. That's high, just as high, if not higher, than DeAndre Hopkins. Think about that.
All right, the last question we have here for this segment: who are some of the guys who we didn't really know going into this combine, but they really made a big name for themselves?
Yeah, Chase Claypool, the wide receiver out of Notre Dame. I'm not calling him the next Calvin Johnson, but physically speaking, he measures up very similarly to Megatron. Again, disclaimer, not Calvin Johnson, but he's a guy who I think can go day 2. I love his tape. He does a great job using his size and speed to create separation on the outside. So I think day 2 in a really stacked receiver class, that would be more than happy for Claypool. And Albert Okwuegbunam. I know that's a mouthful, but the tight end out of Missouri, he's got natural raw talent. We saw it at Missouri. We also saw it at the Combine as well. The numbers added up to what the tape showed. And I think if drafted by the right team, groomed to the right coaching staff, I think he could potentially be a future Pro Bowler. So watch out for Albert O.
Yeah, my guy is someone that you've probably heard of if you watched the national championship game or LSU all season, and that's Justin Jefferson. Not an unfound gem per se, but he's among a strong group of receivers, and it's easy to forget about him with the guys like Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy up there. But he ran a really good 40 time that is probably going to solidify him to be maybe towards the back of the first round, potentially looking at day 2, 4.43 to show that he has elite speed as well. And overall had a really clean workout in terms of his pass catching technique and showed that he is that complete technical receiver, and it kind of matches what he's been able to show on tape in his LSU career. So when you combine those factors, he's someone that could really be improving his draft stock. Was kind of yo-yoing between first and second round, but he's kind of solidified in that range and stands to make a good amount of money on draft day.
And that's going to do it here for our NFL Combine segment on Penn State Sports Night. For Hunter Pitcoff and Jeremy Ganes, I'm Logan Bourandas, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching our latest edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also follow us on Twitter at PSSNTV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.